Welcome to another episode of the Equity Rich Show. It's been a little while, been a lot of traveling, different things going on and stuff, but happy to be back, man. Josh, got anything?
Man, happy to be here. It's Friday, so we in the building, spitting some inner circle talk that's gonna potentially change your life, help you grow some legacy.
Man, that's real. That's real. I think since I last been here, traveled to San Diego, went to the family reunion for what I call my real estate side of the family, which is why I call myself a fourth generation real estate investor. It was so good talking to everybody, man, meeting family members I never met before, and just getting to hear all the inspiring and impactful things that they're doing in their lives. Had no idea I had so many family members on the West Coast and globally, found out I got them in 50 states and the whole probably just as many countries. So that was pretty interesting, inspiring, and motivational for me. Came back, went down to Dallas for 4th of July. Um, got to, explore, I guess it's the smallest county in Dallas, but,
Mm.
you know, I guess Shaquille O'Neal happens to stay there. So, that was a pretty interesting little fact or whatever. Got to ride around to see a bunch of things and stuff like that. But I've been back for a little bit, I guess maybe a week or week and a half or something like that since then. And Josh and I have been connecting on a lot of things. And one conversation came up today, and I was like, you know what? It's worth us jumping on here and kind of debriefing on that, and maybe sharing some of these concepts, about how that went. Josh, you kind of want to set the stage for it, and then
Yeah, so it is a property that we're jointly, I would say we have joint interests in. I think we're providing the capital for it, and it's near and dear. It's one of Nigel's good friends and his actually one of his construction managers in GCs, and basically it's his first, I would say it's his first go around in this process. And there's a lot of like I guess you can call it amateur hiccups that one might, you know, very counterintuitively stumble over, including myself. As a I call myself a not a real estate guru. My background is I do have a lot of real estate experience with capital, but on the side of fixing and renovating, getting it ready for tenants, that's a category that I'm not the expert in. So some of the things that Nigel was mentioning was very, very counterintuitive to what one might think. So yeah, one specifically, I'll let you talk about that specifically, and then I don't want to ruin it.
all right. And what I'll say too is, again, this is one of our construction managers. So what you might be surprised to know that a person that's really experienced in real estate themselves, they've helped probably hundreds, if not thousands, of real estate investors over a number of years, maybe even decades, right? So they have a whole lot of experience, got a lot of expertise, got a lot of training, got a lot of background, got a lot of ideas, got a whole lot of the things that most people wish they had when they enter in this business, right? But something changes depending on what hat you're wearing and what seat you're sitting in, right? So when this is a deal that on one hand has some emotional connection to it, right? On another hand, you're thinking of how do I operate this thing in a way that maximizes not just revenue, but the whole client experience, that balances out the legal environment, that balances out good business strategy, that balances out your own personal goals. That's a lot to juggle, right? Your very first time you're exposed with it, right? When it's really your deal and you're on the hook and it's your capital and it's your loan and you got to pay it back and you're the one, it's different. It's
Facts.
so different, right? So and the risk is that when you're the person that's able to make all the decisions, then you're also the person who's capable of making all the mistakes, right? And you're the one that has to clean up any mess that occurs, right? Any bad decisions, any indecisions, and a lot of what I was describing was when it came to the renovation strategy for this particular property that's being repurposed for more of a co-living type of strategy. Okay. And when I talked about this, of course, a person interested in co-living is thinking, how do I maximize every square inch of this property? How do I maximize every dollar, extract every dollar I can get out of this property? How do I put it in a position where every dollar that I dream of is actually materialized in the real world? Well, in the real world, from an experienced investor's lens, right? Every dollar is not created equally, right? If I can spend a dollar, if I can spend $2 to make one, or I can spend $10 to make 20, or I could, those are all different situations, right? So my conversation centered around a lot of the risks. What I specifically spoke about, and I pull it up, and on the call I actually brought up the 48 laws of power, and I brought up law 47. Let me pull it up real quick so I can quote it more accurately. Right. Hold on. And that law was okay. The 48th law basically says do not go past the mark you aim for. In victory, know when to stop. Okay. Now, one of my personal principles that I like to say, it's kind of like a shorthand version of this, right? And I came up with this principle before I even read the book. And the way I say it is know when you're winning, right? Know when you're winning.
That'll help you too at the casino.
Oh yeah. So
Know
to
when to stop.
to know when you're winning first means that you have to have a clear definition of what winning is, right? Because out in the field, you can get pulled in a bunch of different directions. You got other people's influence, and you got this and that, and all these other things, and it can look like a moving target and all type of stuff, and you can often overshoot what's required for victory. And the problem or the risk is that every step you take beyond winning is taking you somewhere other than winning. And it's a cost attached to that, right? Those resources, even if you can get the money back, you can't get the time back, right? If you over improve and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna convert these rooms to bedrooms and these rooms. Okay, great. Oh, that's great because we can quantify how those are gonna pay back. And in this particular call, the conversation centered around whether the basement itself, in our area, we have basements, right? Oftentimes, and whether that basement should be converted to a studio apartment. Now, the way this house is designed, all of the bedrooms are currently on the second floor, right? The first floor, right, just has the living room, dining room, kitchen, a couple extra rooms. And my suggestion was convert some of those rooms on the main level to bedrooms, right? They were quite big enough, plenty of space. People like not having to, deal with as many stairs and things like that. And it's another space I suggested that maybe be converted to a first floor bathroom because as currently constructed, there's a bathroom on the second floor where the bedrooms are. Actually, and then there's another bathroom in the basement. And in addition, the master bedroom has an attached bathroom, an ensuite as well. So public record shows the property is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, right? But what has since been done since it was constructed is one of those bedrooms was converted to the master bathroom for the master bedroom. So now it's a 3-bedroom house, right? With 3 baths instead of a 4-2. Okay. So what I suggested was consider reverting that master bath back to a 4th bedroom, right? And since there's already a bedroom on the second floor, and then add a bedroom or add a bathroom on the first floor for those rooms that are going to be converted to bathrooms. And I was suggesting that the money would be better spent doing something like that rather than taking that same money just to turn that basement into a studio, which requires egress windows and all types of things. And, separate from the, financial and real estate strategy conversation, this is the part Josh was alluding to, is that the conversation actually turned into more of a marketing and psychology conversation, which is something that kind of exists above the paper and above the numbers and the spreadsheets and all that type of stuff. It exists up here, right? And I said, understand something. You know, regardless of how much money you put into the basement, it's still a basement, right? It's still a basement. No matter how nice it is, it's still going to be a basement, right? So think about the mentality of the person that's moving into that basement, right? They're not showing up saying, "Man, I want to live here forever. I want to live in this basement forever for the rest of my." I'm 20 years old or whatever, right? I can see myself being here when I'm 80. Said nobody. No one ever says that, right? No one's living there, moving into a basement, right? Saying that I want to live here for the rest of my life. And where did I get that from? I've talked on this show about how in my early 20s, I think I was 22 or 23 or something like that. I bought that 8 unit apartment complex. And I had to be really honest with myself when I was looking to do some marketing to get tenants to occupy the place. And I told myself, I said, look, this is an apartment complex. Nobody's moving in this building saying I'm going to live here forever. Everyone's moving in saying this might be right for me right now, but as soon as I can do better or move better or something, I'm gonna move better, right? As soon as I can do better, I'm gonna move better, right? That's what everyone's thinking. So my goal was to operate more almost like a bridge or a transition or possibly a trampoline to help them to reach a higher level. Hence why the first thing I did for the Forest Hill Apartments was rename them to the Future Homeowner Apartments because I understand psychology. I sat down with people and said, look, you're moving in today, but I hope that when you move out, you're going to be a homeowner tomorrow. I don't want you to repeat this perpetual process of continuing to move in things that's temporary, transient, right? You need some stability in your life, right? And guess what? I want to talk to you about that and plant that seed in your mind because if you never do anything about that, then you're never going to get there. Now, no one might have ever talked to you about this before today and let you know that that's a possibility for you. That's something that can happen in your future. But I'm here to tell you that you could possibly own a home one day. How do I know? Because I did it and I've helped other people do it. And people that look just like you have the same situation as you, have the same income and stresses and concerns and problems and fears and whatever else, have done the same thing I'm telling you you can do too. Now, did that work for everybody? Absolutely not. But for those that did, it did. Okay. So as investors, as property owners, as housing providers, business owners, whatever you want to call yourself, the best thing you can do is be honest with yourself. Separate the emotion from the decisions, right? So that way you're building on solid ground. You're building on a stable foundation. You're building on truth. And that starts with honesty with self, right? So rather than investing so much into a basement, I said, look, save that $10,000, $15,000 because you're in a position that by the end of the year, you're probably going to have a portfolio of 10, 15, 20 properties at the rate that you're going, right? And what happens if you blow your budget on this house over improving in something that's not really going to be appreciated, reciprocated, or compensated to the level of your investment, right? And then the next week you buy a house that needs that same money to rent it. You go buy a 3 bedroom that needs that same budget to fix up and get it occupied and cash flowing, right? So the sequence of our funds and I talked about how we have to plan out different phases. You don't have to do everything in phase all in one phase. Let's plan out what phase 0 and phase 1 looks like. Some things might have to wait till phase 5 or phase 6 or whatever, right? And that's okay. We don't have to eat the whole elephant in one bite. You know what I'm saying? We don't have to, and it's okay. But again, that's defining what winning is. We have to be honest with ourselves about those things. And when we overshoot it, sometimes it can feel superficially good, but there oftentimes ends up being eternal and long-standing consequences to making those mistakes.
There it is. There it is. And just to piggyback off that, I would say I come from a lineage of like amateur real estate investors. And that's one thing that's very counterintuitive. My family actually prides themselves on hooking up the basement, you know? So hearing it from a seasoned real estate investor that like, hey, that's not, that may not be the best use of your funds makes sense because you're looking at it from a intrinsic value from a consumer standpoint. Like, hey, I need to have a good man cave, So that makes a lot of sense as far as like, especially one thing as a financier I see is people running into the infamous liquidity problems. So with those liquidity problems, like you never know when you're gonna run into. No one plans on running into a liquidity problem. So it's always good to keep as much cash reserves on hand as possible. So that's still a lesson that even the top investors and top real estate developers have to continue to keep in mind because it's you never know when you can possibly get wiped out. If you knew it, then if everybody knew it, then no one would get wiped out. So
Oh yeah. And I would say this too. The honest truth is this. I've made these mistakes a lot.
oh yeah, oh yeah,
I made them a lot. And that's the only reason I have the conviction is because I've made those mistakes. And to be honest, to be transparent, I still make them
facts,
sometimes.
facts.
Forget. I learned so much over the years that now it's like your brain boots certain things out to make room for the new lessons or something. Then you're like, oh, wait a minute, that seems familiar. You know what I'm
hmm
saying?
hmm
And you learn that you have to relearn the lesson, right?
and the thing is that you can do everything perfect and still run into liquidity problems. Like that's not something that is some of the time controllable. You know, there are droughts and there are abundant seasons of harvest. You just got to understand what season you're in, and these lessons hopefully help you navigate it. But they're not gonna prevent all bottlenecks. Bottlenecks exist because they're the ebb and flow of life and nature. Resistance, like that's one of my biggest recent lessons hearing from some of my mentors is that resistance is a part of growth. If there is no growth, if there is no resistance, there is no growth. There is no pain, there is no gain. So embrace resistance. Like Nigel saying, this is one of the ways that one can embrace resistance is planning for resistance, you know?
Man. One thing I like to say, um, I've heard said to me and I've adopted and made it my own, is that oftentimes you hear people say that pressure bust pipes, right? But it also reveals the leaks. Pressure bust pipes, but it also reveals the leaks, right? And the thing is you have to be in position, you have to position your business, right? So that it can survive those leaks, so that those leaks don't become catastrophic. And oftentimes that pressure comes from environmental things. You could have planned, like Josh said, you could have planned everything perfectly and did everything you were supposed to do and all types of things. And then certain variables that are outside of your control can add an overwhelming amount of pressure to your operation, right? And significantly change the outcome of how your operation looks and what it produces. So you do need to keep those sufficient reserves. You do need to strategize on how do I break my operation down into phases, my implementation plan into phases, right? So that way you can hold back certain reserves, hold back certain things so that you can actually be in position. No, you can't prevent everything. No, you can't fix every problem. But there's a lot you can do. There's a lot you can prevent, right? And one thing that I would credit my friend and construction manager that we talked about on this call is that he at least sought counsel before he made the catastrophic decisions. Far too often we isolate ourselves. We treat ourselves like an island, like we're on an island or something, where now we close our minds and our ears and we're not receptive to even taking advice, even when we're surrounded by people. Because you better believe I'll take advice from him, I'll take advice from Josh, I'll take advice from the cleaning lady, I'll take advice from whoever. Because genius is all around us, even when we don't necessarily recognize it.
And by the way, them cleaning ladies got some sauce.
Oh, cleaning ladies, people, the mailmen and women, say you man, you'd be shocked. the kind of game you can get if you're just receptive to it. So that's another secret of success. Another strategy that'll get you ahead despite whatever convictions, we all got to have our convictions and motivations and inspirations and all that type of stuff, but we also have to stay to a certain degree malleable, receptive. We got to maintain being a student,
Mhm.
right? We got to maintain our ability to learn and to grow and to improve and to challenge not just others, but ourselves and our own beliefs, our own philosophies, right? Because that's what creates room for growth.
Boom. There it is. There it is.
So I guess we'll close this one on out, man. Glad to be back and we'll tap back in soon.